a reporting center for like Bigfoot UFOs out of Cashiers, North Carolina, and she has a website. It's a great reporting center. When she comes on my show once a month, and she was talking about when they were building a community college near where she is at, they unearthed skulls and skeletons, complete skeletons of little people that were under a foot tall. And they found like 3 or 4 of them, and all of a sudden, you know, the government or whatever came and got them, and that was the end of it. And have you found...
What state?
This is in North Carolina.
What state was that in?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay, well, one of the chapters in my book is called Little People, and I've heard about pixies and fairies and all that stuff, you know, like everybody else. Well, I was on a dig out in Colorado, on a dinosaur dig, and there was a lady there with some NASA people, an American Indian lady, very nice lady. And I asked her, I said, you know, what about the little people? She said, oh, yeah, we throw our clothes out in the back, and they take them. I go, what? She says, yeah, they come and get our old clothes. So I get a call from these truckers, right? These aren't guys out making up books to sell to the public. They said, hey, you got to come up. We got to tell you the story. So I went up to near Denver, met with these 2 truckers, and they, with a straight face, and I mean, they were totally serious. He said, we came across this little being about 7 inches tall. We chased it into a box canyon, and it disappeared. I go, what? Yeah, it was about 7 inches tall and it disappeared. It was like a human. And I don't know if they described it, the wings now, I can't remember. But I go, I don't know how it could disappear. You know, the Picts over in, I think it's Scotland, they were so ferocious. They almost routed the Romans. Now, they could jump into holes they had dug. So you're seeing this little thing roll along off that disappears. Well, apparently it dove into a hole in one of their caverns. So did this little creature do the same thing? I don't know. But I was on a dinosaur dig in Colorado, and it rained me off the side, or snowed me off the side. So went into town and bought a history of that area, and history of Blue Mountain people, I guess. And I read the book, and in here there's this story of this little white girl whose best friend was a little Indian girl. And little white girl says, well, what are you going to do today? When they were out playing, this is in the maybe 1910s or 1800s. And the little white girl says, well, let's go up and collect arrowheads up there on this peak. The Indian girl says, no, the Pictune will get us. The Pictune, they'll get us. I go, Pictune, pixies, little people. You know, there's something going on there. You know, I'm not sure what that all amounts to, but it goes against that old stupid evolution thing, you know. I mean, it's just, everybody should throw that nonsense out. We don't know what all these things are, but you know, there are monkeys and people, and there's some of this little creature like this, and there are tiny, small people that are just human beings. Well, they're giant people. They're human beings.
Well, you know, up here, I have a regular guest also on my show, Samantha Ritchie. Now, she claims up in Clearwater, Washington, where she has her place, she's got pictures of little people. We're talking about 6 inches, maybe a foot tall. And she has sent me some of those pictures. Yeah, they're kind of blurry, but, you know, because they kind of blend in. But she enhanced the pictures without modifying them. And you can clearly see that there's like human-like form. But again, she said that she's seen them quite often in her area. And that makes me wonder if things like that exist, everything we have learned, you know, going through grade school, junior high school, and college, you could just throw out the window.
Well, or they just didn't turn the page and tell you the rest of the story.
Oh, you know,
I'm being an artist, and also I'm interested in history. I have a lot of art books, and I've studied them thoroughly. I'm interested in everybody's art from everywhere, and I particularly like the stories of long, long ago, you know, that were written back in the 15, 16, 1700s and beautifully illustrated with pen and ink. there's always pixies and fairies and dwarfs and elves and, all that stuff in there. So now I'm starting to think, well, wait a minute, maybe that's not all just made up stories to entertain little children. Maybe there's really something there that should be looked into. So, I don't care. People think I'm crazy anyway, but I just think that ought to be looked into. So I'm looking into it. There's a little people story out here. These guys, I guess they were just adventurers. They said, hey, they would show me some mammoth bones. Somebody had dug a pit out there near Lubbock, Texas, and hit what I told them. I said, well, you've hit the left side of a mammoth jaw, and this is down about 3 feet, which that's a whole other story. But they got to telling me they had come across this little city out in New Mexico, way out there in the boondocks. There's not much out there, So we came across this little city, and with doorways about 12 inches tall, and so we couldn't tell if it was was a toy for some kid. It looked like it's too elaborate to have been a toy, or someone made up a mud and rock hut. He said it looked like somebody lived there. And a friend of mine later called me and said, hey, I'm negotiating for this little creature that's about 12 inches tall, a man 12 inches tall, a mummy from New Mexico. I go, bingo. It's got to be connected. Now, he didn't end up with a mummy. I'm not sure. It's a famous mummy. I'm not going to say where it is, but, again, where there's smoke, there's fire. And a lot of people don't want to go there because they're afraid of getting burned, and I'm not.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think even when Samantha came on, I think at the start she was kind of a little nervous because a lot of people, have closed minds. There's so many different things on this earth yet in different places that we haven't even explored, let alone even when we're out there, we're not looking for little people. We're not looking for, even skulls of giants or anything. So, I mean, most people would walk by any of that stuff and not even, well, they evidently would walk by it and never even recognize it exists.
Yeah. My perspective, I've been thoroughly into the art, thoroughly into the music. I was in Hollywood a long time and involved with the music and the movie and the art industry out there. So that crowd generally is pretty liberal, not Christian, not religious per se. And I'm also totally involved in the paleontology. And they're definitely not Christians. They're not religious at all. They're just, most of them are atheists, a lot of them. So, that being said, I still look at everything through what I think, okay, what does this say about the Bible? If something I see in the material world, does this contradict the Bible or does the Bible agree with it somewhere? So I look at it from that perspective and, people, well, none of that stuff's mentioned in the Bible. Oh, yeah, it is too. You'd be surprised what's in there. In the material world, it's been mentioned. Whether you believe it or not, whether you believe in God or not, doesn't matter. These are ancient books. And the stuff they're talking about has been established for thousands of years. So it's like the Bigfoot question. If they're a human, what is a human? That's what Ron Moorhead, first time we met over in Peru, he says, well, what's a human? I go, what do you mean, what's a human? We all know what a human is, don't we? Well, maybe not. I go, okay, all right. So I gotta know more about this because if it contradicts what I think the Bible teaches, I've got a problem. So I got to keep digging. But I'm not going to bend the facts to fit my religious views. And maybe some people do. Paleontologists do that all the time. They leave some of the facts off so their story will stand. So I don't know. That's these things are all interesting. It's like a lot of things are interesting to people. Food, movies, guys like girls are interested in girls. It's just natural. I think we're drawn to the mysterious world, the unknown world, the crypto world.
Well,
and
so.
A lot of people just discount it because they're afraid they'll be laughed at. Well, some of us don't care.
Well, hey, just like UFOs back 10 years ago, if somebody said, hey, I saw a UFO, they were scared to say anything. Now it seems like everybody's coming out and saying, hey, I saw a UFO. at one point in my life. So, I mean, people are starting to open up on stuff like this more than ever. Now, you can blame that on the internet because people can, read and communicate and, tell their stories of what they've seen and share it. Now, I still want to get back to this lady that saw a Mothman. What did it look like and how big was it and all that? Did she describe it?
Yeah, there were two ladies, and the first lady was living over here on our Highway 651, which runs right through Crosbyton, real close to just a house away from my museum. And she was out I guess, on a nice evening, about 11 o'clock at night, smoking a cigarette before she went to bed. And everything's quiet. She hears something, senses something around her, looks up, goes, "Oh, my Lord, what is that?" Here's something hovering above her. And she throws the cigarette down, runs in the house, locks all the windows and doors, closes all the shutters, and is mortified, she's terrified. Well, a friend of hers later that night, about 4 in the morning, was taking her husband something to eat out north of our little town here. And just about 3 blocks from where this lady saw this thing hovering over her, she was going along, not very fast, and there's a 16-wheeler trucker coming to meet her. Says she hit this thing. She said all of a sudden, boom, it just was right there, and she hit it. It bumped her head on the steering wheel and dented the fender, and it slid off into the ditch and left a trail. So apparently it was, 6, 7 feet tall. This trucker gets out. He says, "Lady, get away from that thing. It's not human. Get away from it." Said, "I see him out here this time of night. Get away from it. Get back in your car." Well, she thinks she's hit some man. So she goes over and said, "Sir," and he rolls over and looks at her with his horrible face and stands up and she describes his wings as more or less just like rags hanging down, not rags, but something not like feathered wings. And he began to ascend and circled around them and then flew away. So
that would be so scary. Remember Jeepers Creepers, the movies?
Yes, that's what this lady said that face looked like.
Yeah.
She said that's what that face looked like. And other times I've done quite a bit of research on Mothman since. Sometimes they say the face looks like an owl, maybe, or a moth. What does a moth face look like? Well, it don't look like a human, but are there different kinds? Is it all the same? Yeah, I don't know. Can they bury their head down in their feathers or their skin? Sometimes you see that. Sometimes you see the head. I don't know.
Well,
there's one on the little do what?
Oh, I was going to say in Arizona, there's been reports up in the deserts around the caves and stuff up there of creatures that, kind of look like demons with wings, again, about 6 to 9 feet tall. The Indians used to talk about those.
See, that brings up another thing. I have a friend named Herb Stein. He's been a really serious pterodactyl researcher. You're going, well, wait a minute. Pterodactyls have been dead for 65 million years. That's what we're all told. Well, maybe not. So he's been down to Arizona to try and catch one of these things and knows a lot about them. I've got it on film. There's a young Mexican fella here, a friend of mine, saw my museum. I was doing a little work for him, and so he saw, okay, dinosaurs. So I got to tell you about this thing I saw, Mr. Taylor. And he tells back when he was a teenager, he's out here on Highway 651, same place. He said along in the evening after supper, he was out on the front porch drinking Kool-Aid. Said, here comes this thing gliding down pretty much over the highway and making this sound with his wings, right? And he said he didn't flap them very much. And I said, well, how wide were his wings? He said, wings were about 5 feet. His body was about 3 feet across. So I said, well, he said, you could see the little legs hanging down or something. I said, can you draw it? So he drew a pterodactyl. And I interviewed him here about 6 or 8 months ago. And I asked him about the story again. He told me the same story. And I said, can you draw